The New York Jets have won their second game in a row. So, let's get fired up. Hit that like button for me and please subscribe to the channel while you're here. The New York Jets beat the Cleveland Browns. And historically, the Jets come out of the bye week flat. However, we've gotten that monkey off of our back with a win following the bye. Aside from the 2 special teams touchdowns, the Jets had 6 sacks, which were instrumental in getting this victory. Before I get to the game itself, I want to go over all 6 of the Jets' sacks. On the first sack, the Jets run a stunt, with Harrison Phillips taking on the double team, Clements lined up on the left, and Jermaine Johnson loops around and comes inside, basically almost free, and it allows Will McDonald to get to the quarterback. On the second sack, they run more of a traditional 4-man rush. JJ pass rushing from the left. His pressure makes the quarterback step up. Will McDonald gets the sack. Clements and Jay Tufele were also there. The pressure was tremendous by all these guys all day long. Even on the plays where they didn't get sacks, they were getting consistent pressure all day. On the third sack, we have Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald both lined up on the inside, with Jay Tufele on the left and Clements on the right. Again, this time it's Jay Tufele's pressure from the left side that makes the quarterback step up, allowing McDonald to get another sack. On sack number 4, the pocket just absolutely collapses. We got JJ on the right end, with Phillips and Briggs on the inside. Once again, Will gets the sack. Clements was also there and almost knocked the ball out. Another good pass rush by the group. On pass rush number 5, I'm not going to go into the alignment on all of these, but this one, Quincy blitzes from the left side. He kind of chips the tight end and then comes on the blitz and is able to get home. Great play by Quincy, who, by the way, Quincy, and I think this is a misconception. I think it was poor wording. Quincy wasn't necessarily benched. To be benched would mean that he's not playing at all. What in actuality happened is Quincy just wasn't starting. And I think people made more out of that than what they should have. I think this was clear and simply the coaching staff sending a message to Quincy that they wanted him to elevate his game, and he did. He absolutely responded with probably one of his best games of the year. The last sack, sack number 6. Jermaine on the left, Harrison Phillips, Jay Tufele on the inside, and once again, they just make the pockets collapse, and JJ gets the sack. Even on the sacks that Will McDonald had, Jermaine Johnson caused consistent pressure all day long. And on JJ's sack, that was the perfect example of what it means when you hear guys talk about a pass rusher converting speed to power. This was a good game plan by Steve Wilkes. The creativity of the pass rushes was really nice to see, and it helped us secure this win. There were 2 main contributing factors in this win yesterday. One being the 6 sacks, the other being the 2 special teams touchdowns. For the most part, this was a good, solid team win, with everyone contributing, except for Justin Fields, and in large part the wide receivers, due to Justin Fields. In Wangu's kick return, Quantez Stiggers had a key block that freed him up, and he took it to the house. Man, it's been just crazy to see what he did. You know, he scores a kick return touchdown, gets hurt, misses 4 games, and then he comes back and scores another touchdown. I really hope that this guy can stay healthy the rest of the year, because we really need him out there. Now, Isaiah Williams, punt return touchdown. Really nice. That kid's got some nice speed. And you want to say, you know, what has Aaron Glenn done? Dude, the improvement of Isaiah Williams is something to really take note of. He had the worst first game anybody could possibly have. You know, fair catching the ball at the 2, the fumble, just all of it. Gets himself cut from the team. When the Jets brought him back and re-signed him, the fan base went crazy. And from the outside looking in, it looked like sheer insanity. Like, why on earth would you bring this guy back? He was awful. But you know what? He went from being the worst returner you've ever seen in your life 4 weeks ago to, in our last game, being the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week, and then this week scoring a touchdown. People want to say Glenn hasn't done a good job coaching. Well, the improvement of Isaiah Williams is an incredible example of coaching. And the Glenn detractors are going to say, oh, well, that's not Glenn. That's Chris Banjo, because he's the special teams coordinator. However, just like the Glenn detractors will say, oh, but Justin Fields is Glenn's guy. Well, guess what? Chris Banjo is Glenn's guy. Glenn hired him. That's the guy that Glenn picked. So, Glenn should get credit for that. I'm going to use their own logic against them. If you want to say, oh, it wasn't Glenn, it was Banjo, well, Banjo is Glenn's guy. The objective people in this fan base will see incremental improvement by this unit, with the exception of quarterback, once again. Now, this game was not perfect at all. Far from it. On Jerry Jeudy's touchdown, Brandon Stephens had really good coverage, but when Jeudy kind of worked back to the ball in the end zone, Stephens slips, allowing him to make the catch. But that's just something that happens. All in all, Stephens did a pretty good job yesterday. And Brandon Stephens, man, at the beginning of the year, we were all screaming about how bad this kid was and how stupid the Jets were for giving him the contract that he did. Now, over the past 5 games, he's been PFF's number 1 rated corner. Number 1. At the same time, Brownlee, who was signed by Glenn and Muji, has been PFF's 5th rated corner. So that's 2 guys in the top 5. You know whose name isn't on that list? Sauce Gardner. The guy that we traded away, who in his first game as a Colt dropped an interception that hit him right in the chest and fell flat on his face twice, including the game-winning touchdown that he gave up. You know what? Absolutely worth 2 first-round picks and a wide receiver all day long. People want to bag on Glenn and Muji. Dude, that trade, I'll tell you what, that trade is going to be like fine wine. It's just going to age and get better with time. It already looks like a great trade. And I like Sauce. Sauce is a good guy, but we weren't winning games with him. People can bag on Aaron Glenn because he didn't get rid of Michael Clemens. Michael Clemens has actually improved. He went similar to Stevens from being unplayable to actually contributing. Now, he isn't making the impact that Stevens is, but Michael Clemens had consistent pressures on the quarterback all day long. Now, if he was a little bit faster, he probably would have had a couple of sacks himself yesterday, but he's just not fast. He looks slow compared to Jermaine and Will. I have no idea what Michael Clemens' 40 time was, but let's say for the hell of it, he ran, 5.340. If he could run a 4.9 or a 4.840, this guy would be getting sacks right now. And, again, not great, but you can't deny that there's been improvement there. The Jets were better versus the run yesterday. Not perfect, but, again, improvement. The one thing that I would really like to see this Jets defense improve in is the ability to cover tight ends, because tight ends are still killing us. The biggest problem with this team has been the offense. With 2 minutes left in the third quarter, the Jets were 1-7, and I'm not talking about our win-loss record. They were 1 of 7 on third down. That is a terrible statistic. Justin Fields had 54 total yards passing for this game. 42 of those yards came on the screen to Breece Hall. So, if you were to take that screen to Breece out of the equation, Justin Fields passed for 12 yards in the game. Like, you usually don't have a quarterback throw for 54 yards and your team ends up winning that game. Justin Fields did not help us win that game. Breece Hall won us that game, the special teams won us that game, and our pass rush won us that game. We're not winning because of our quarterback. We're winning in spite of our quarterback. And I, for one, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, was screaming at the TV yesterday for them to please bench Justin Fields. If he continues to play like this, I just don't see how we can ride with him the rest of the way. I know they're worried about Tyrod getting hurt, whatever. I don't care. I just want to see somebody throw the damn ball. Which there was a play where they gave the ball to Mechie, and it almost looked for a second like he was going to throw the ball. And I was honestly hoping that he would. It would have been a fun play, and it would have been nice to see somebody just throw the ball down the field. Breece Hall. That screenplay, we got to see old school Breece Hall, where he got in the open field, turned on the afterburners, and he took it to the house. That breakaway speed, we're starting to see that again. Joe Tippmann had a great block that sprung Breece Hall and got him free, and he did the rest. At the end of that game, Breece Hall had a couple of really nice longer runs because he was able to get into a rhythm because they actually gave him the volume. They were actually giving him the carries. When you give Breece Hall the ball 20 times a game, he's going to do damage. When you give him the ball 7 to 9 times a game, he's never going to be able to get into a rhythm. Running backs need carries to get going. Running backs need the carries in order to get hot. I mentioned before, Quincy probably had one of his best games this year. Jamie and Sherwood played a little bit better. Jamie and Sherwood probably made his most devastating hit of the entire year. Unfortunately, it was on one of our own guys, and it took Azareye'h Thomas out of the game, which was terrible to see. Things got a little bit worse once AZ left the game. Isaiah Oliver has been bad. He's just not a good football player. But at the end of the day, we won the game, and that's all that matters. You know, the detractors will say, oh, you know, we're bad, we just look bad, things shouldn't look this bad. But they want to ignore the fact that even though we started 1-7, 5 of those losses were one-score games. Well, you know what? Even when games are ugly, good football teams find a way to win. Early in the year, we were not doing that. You know what? In this game, we found a way to win. And I'll admit, going into this game, I was nervous, because in his previous game versus the Patriots, Myles Garrett had 5 sacks. But you know what? Credit to our offensive line. They only gave up 1 sack to him. You know who did have that many sacks? Will McDonald had the sacks. Will McDonald had 4 sacks. Quincy had 1. Jermaine had 1. And you know what? Being that our next game is this Thursday against the Patriots, who gave up those 5 sacks to Myles Garrett, the fact that we're coming off a 6-sack game, it's encouraging to me. Because if the Patriots gave up 5 sacks to Myles Garrett, you know what? Maybe we get 3 or 4 against them as well. Maybe their offensive line is the weak spot in that team, and we can take advantage of it. Looking forward to that game. Thank you to everybody for joining me today. Once again, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and kudos to all the fans who were at that game in person and sat through the rain and the terrible weather. I'm really glad that the people that were there got to see a win. There's nothing worse than sitting through bad weather to see a loss. I know I did it in Tampa this year. It was 1,000,000 degrees outside, and at the end of the game, when we got the lead with 1.5 minutes left, and we thought there might be a chance, we found a way to blow it. Yesterday, we didn't do that. We came away with the victory, and now we're 2-7. You know what? That's 2 wins in a row. Let's keep stacking these wins, and you know, let's be patient and give Aaron Glenn some time, and because this team is improving and his vision is starting to take shape. Thanks, everyone. Once again, appreciate all your support. And until next time, go Jets.